Well, we are back with Senator Raphael Warnock. Senator, thank you so much for coming and speaking with us.
Great to be here with you.
So you just came back from an electric trip in Chicago, you taking the stage for a major moment, a speech that really kind of came out like a sermon that you preach every Sunday at Ebenezer Baptist Church, getting everybody fired up. During that sermon to the congregation, as I will call it, you were speaking to America. I want to bring things back here to Georgia and ask you about, during that speech, when you were talking about January 6th, you were talking about the discrepancies we were seeing here in Georgia during the election. You said we must remain vigilant tonight because these anti-democratic forces are at work right now in Georgia and all across our country. You're talking about some of the changing voting laws. When you were saying this, was this aimed at Governor Brian Kemp and other GOP lawmakers that, despite everything that happened, are putting their support behind Donald Trump?
Well, first of all, let me say that the people of Georgia, the people, did an amazing thing when they elected me and John Ossoff to the United States Senate. I think folks were counting Georgia out. We demonstrated who and what Georgia is. And as a result of that, we were able to get all of the good things that we've been able to do over the last two Congresses. That wouldn't have happened without Georgia. The bipartisan infrastructure bill that Georgia's benefiting from right now, the Inflation Reduction Act and all the clean energy projects that are coming out of that are literally helping Georgia to be the cutting edge for all the work that we're doing and the jobs that we're creating. And so I'm really, really proud of Georgia. But yeah, there's no question that there were those who looked at the anatomy of our victory and they went after it with surgical precision. It's called SB 202. And there are provisions in that bill, for example, one that allows random citizens to challenge the validity of other citizens' voter registration, people they don't even know. And we saw some 6 right-wing activists literally challenge the voter registration of some 85,000 people. And the provisions of that law literally tie up taxpayers' money and resources, having to chase down all of these rabbit holes under the putative arguments of voter fraud. And now we're witnessing right now MAGA extremists who are trying to change the rules for voting, even though we're already in the midst of an election. And they seem to be setting the table for people who know they're losing the argument. Otherwise, why would you do this? Why would you encourage counties for almost any reason to question a certification unless you're worried that the people are going to once again do what they did in 2021, and that is give you an outcome that partisan actors in our state don't like.
Let me ask you about the race to the White House, the outcome here in Georgia. For Harris to win Georgia, I want to take things back to your runoff race with Herschel Walker. You took that race in the runoff, 51% to his 48.6%, and you said that
landslide in Georgia.
Okay, all right. Well, you said, and it could have been. You said that you campaigned in traditionally red counties, like Forsyth County, Cherokee County. You didn't win in those counties, but you did take about more than 30% of the vote there. Does Harris need Republicans to get on her side to win Georgia?
She needs to play all over the state. And as we said all last week, our tent is wide. And you have the base of our party, but this is not just another election. There's a way in which for all of our differences, I really wish we were having the same arguments that Democrats and Republicans have had over the years about the size and the role of government. I would love to be having that argument, and those issues are still relevant. But this year, freedom is on the ballot. Democracy itself is on the ballot. And I think that's why you have Republicans, some in this state, others nationally, who are standing up and saying that we've got to do the right thing. Then maybe we can go back and have those arguments. Like the Republicans who stood on the stage this past week, a lot of them are still conservative Republicans. And but they know, as the former lieutenant governor said, that a vote for Kamala Harris doesn't make you a Democrat. Right about now, it makes you a patriot.
And speaking of patriots, speaking of freedom, we heard chants of USA, USA during the DNC, things that we don't necessarily see, a big presence of the American flag. The Democratic National Convention almost trying to reclaim that word patriot, that it's not just for the Republicans, it's for Democrats too. We know that the vice president, now presidential nominee, and her VP nominee, they're going to be touring the south of Georgia this coming week. Will she need to reclaim freedom, reclaim patriot during her tour of the South? We believe she's going to be in Savannah, which is traditionally blue, but how important is it for her to speak to those traditionally conservative voters here in Georgia? Because we saw a VP pick for Trump, J.D. Vance in Valdosta.
Well, freedom is what's at stake. These aren't just words. This is the reality that we're facing with actual life and death consequences. Freedom for women and their doctors to make informed decisions so that a woman having a miscarriage doesn't have to bleed out into a parking lot because her doctor is worried. He's stuck somewhere between his Hippocratic oath and the politics of extreme, of extremism. And that's where we are. So freedom over something as basic as body autonomy. Freedom for your vote and your voice to be heard in your democracy, and not to be worried that it's going to be taken or undermined by some right-wing extremist who's trying to rig the outcome. Freedom for our children to go to school every day and not worry that they're going to be the next Columbine or the next Newtown. I'm a father of small children, and when we drop our kids off in the morning, the most precious thing we could ever have, we want to know we're going to pick them up that afternoon. And so that's what's at stake in this election. And I think very often, it gets framed in political terms, but 70% and more of Americans, 86%, that was the number, according to a Fox News poll. I don't often say that, but Fox News poll said 86% of Americans would like to see background checks. And yet we can't get it done because too often somebody other than the people own our politics. The outsized impact of the gun lobby, big oil, big pharma. We push back hard against big pharma, and we've capped the cost of prescription drugs. My bill, which caps the cost of insulin to no more than $35 out-of-pocket cost. So the other question on this election, for this election is do you want somebody who's going to stand on the side of big pharma and what they want, or somebody who's going to be standing up for ordinary Georgians, for your grandmother, your grandfather, so that they don't have to choose between buying prescription drugs and buying groceries? And
I want to get to the question of affordability. If we could backtrack really quick here to the DNC, Congresswoman Lucy McBath, the face of the fight against gun violence. We saw that here. I want to ask you this. There are going to be attacks from Republicans to VP Harris and her pick, saying the American people chose Biden to run for office, not Harris. She was a DNC plant. She's part of Biden administration, the Bidenomics that's leading to a 40-year inflation high. There are some people who could not trust this ticket, including Democrats. How do you convince people to show up who don't trust it?
I think you saw a whole lot of unity in that hall this past week. And it didn't end in that hall. There's no question. It is reverberating throughout the Democratic Party and beyond. We are building the coalition that we need to win by centering ordinary people and their concerns and their problems. The problem the Republican Party has right now, and it ain't the old Republican Party, is that they've got a nominee who's focused on his problems. He's focused on his 34 criminal indictments, even as he runs against a prosecutor. And he's wondering about his fate, and the ways in which we're seeing him become unhinged and unraveled, I think reflects the deep anxiety that Donald Trump is having right now. And look, as a pastor, I pray for him. I wish him well, but I'm more concerned about the American people and our future. And while they're focused on his problems, we're going to keep building on the record we have with capping the cost of prescription drugs, with actually making Big Pharma have to not just tell us what the price of prescription drugs is going to be, that we get to negotiate the cost of prescription drugs. That's the work we're going to continue to do, to build on the work we've done with passing the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which we're literally seeing the benefits of in our state right now. I was with the vice president a few weeks ago. She's been to Georgia several times. Why? Because she knows Georgia's in play. She knows we've done great work here as a result of these bills. And we were together here just a few weeks ago celebrating the Stitch. This is a project that will literally restitch communities that were divided decades ago through something called urban renewal, that literally eviscerated whole communities and neighborhoods in the process. We have a similar project going on in my hometown of Savannah, the I-16 flyover. I literally grew up in that neighborhood that was separated by I-16. And through the bipartisan infrastructure bill, we actually did infrastructure instead of simply declaring, as Donald Trump did, infrastructure week every week without doing any. We're seeing these benefits literally going in the ground in Georgia. And not far from that I-16 flyover, over in Liberty County, we're seeing this Kia plant that's coming up out of the ground right now. It's going to create some 9,000 jobs, and through the Inflation Reduction Act, bolster this clean energy future that begins in Georgia. I couldn't be prouder to stand with Kamala Harris in a moment like this.
Let's talk about some of that work that has been done. You mentioned the effort that you led to help cap insulin at $35 a month for some users. A big theme of the DNC was looking to the future, so let's talk about the future. You have some legislation that you're working on, the American Housing and Economic Mobility Act, $500 billion to increase the supply of affordable housing here in Atlanta. The mayor of Atlanta, that's been a really big thing for him, trying to get more affordable housing units here. If you're able to pass that, how much money would come to Georgia?
Well, I can tell you that this is a ambitious undertaking. We have a serious housing crisis in Georgia and all across our country, and we're still digging our way out of the situation created by the 2008 crisis. We have a lack of housing supply, and that's driving up the costs. So the bill that I introduced a few weeks ago aims to create and bring online over time about 3 million new housing units, combination of home ownership and rental. And what we're trying to do is bolster the supply side. And we believe, the folks who've looked at this believe that by increasing the supply side, we'll literally drive rents down by about 10%. So that's our focus. It's about $500 billion of investment. And housing is dignity, housing is opportunity. And one of the, go ahead.
Do you have an idea of how much you would want to see come to Georgia out of that?
Oh, we're going to try to get as much as we can. I'm always fighting for Georgia. But we got to get this bill over the finish line. We don't get the bill passed.
Here, let me ask you this, if that's okay. If, once again, it does have to be passed, but if it does get passed, $500 billion, a lot of money. A question that your fellow senators might have is, where is the funding coming from? Would go ahead.
Oh, I can tell you, we're going to require the wealthiest of the wealthy to pay a little bit more towards their fair share. And so the money is there. We just need the wealthy to pay their fair share. And
their fair share of what?
Of their fair share of taxes. And so, almost everybody who's watching me right now, I'm not talking about you. Almost anybody who's watching me right now, we're talking about the extremely wealthy, many of whom pay almost no taxes.
So basically raising taxes for the wealthy, making sure they're paying their fair share to fund affordable housing.
We're going to invest money in the housing, the Federal Housing Trust. We're going to incentivize municipalities to relax some of these old, time-worn uh, statutes that are literally putting a stranglehold on the development of housing all over our country. And we will incentivize people to rethink housing in our country. It's absolutely necessary. If we don't address the supply side, there are other things we've got to do, but if we don't address the supply side, we're going to have a problem. And so much of this is a crisis of our own creation. And so it'll be part of what we'll be doing is encouraging cities, municipalities, towns to rethink housing, to be smart about how we deploy housing so that we put the American dream within reach for ordinary people. We're also going to be supporting first-time, first-generation homeowners through providing down payment assistance. We're also going to make it harder for private equity to swoop in and reclaim homes that are in financial distress from the federal government. That's creating part of the problem. So this bill addresses that as well.
Let me ask you this, just one more question on this specific bill. The Biden administration has long said that they want to raise taxes on the wealthy, have them pay their fair share. If that's not possible, if that doesn't get voted on, what other cuts would you be willing to see be made in order to fund something like this?
Well, it is possible. I think the question really ought to be why are there folk in my business who are more focused on representing those who have an outsized influence in our politics than the people who elected them, the people who sent them to Congress. And so I'm not about to back up on this. I'm not about to give up one bit. And in many instances, we're literally talking about taking the tax code back to where it was under some previous Republican presidents. Donald Trump gave his friends a $2 trillion tax cut. That's the only campaign promise that I can think of that he met. He certainly didn't do infrastructure. He's short on policy, but he's long on making sure that he makes it easier and better for people like him. I'm going to be working for people, like the college student that I met who literally had to ration her insulin. I'm going to be focused on trying to make life better for working moms and dads who would love to get back to work, who would love to be leaning in hard, but there's a child care crisis in our country. And it boggles my mind that people who use the rhetoric of family are willing to do so very little to support ordinary families, to drive down the cost of prescription drugs, to make child care available so moms and dads can get back to work. So little to invest in workforce development, which is another bill that I've introduced recently, very proud of. I'm trying to bolster the workforce pipeline so that we tap all of the genius in our community, which I promise you can be found on both sides of the track in forgotten about communities all over Atlanta, all over Georgia. There's some young kid dreaming like I was growing up in public housing who really just wants to make his or her contribution, and just with a little bit of investment, a little bit of encouragement, we don't simply help them, we strengthen our own future.
You hit on a lot of points that are going to potentially be make it or break it points for voters this election season. Yeah. One point that you brought up during the DNC was the women's reproductive health, the women's right to choose. I believe you said there is not enough room in that room for a woman, her doctor, as well as the government. Given your role as a pastor, given your role as a senator, some could see these roles as conflicting when it comes to the morality of abortion. Some conservatives believe that it's not right under the Bible, right? What is your message to some of those voters who just cannot get behind the notion of allowing something like this? They might like Democratic policies, but the one thing that's going to keep them away from voting blue is the support to allow abortion in the hospitals.
I am not pro-choice in spite of my pastoral identity, but because of it. I have a strong and abiding reverence for life, which is why I fight so hard to address this awful crisis in maternal mortality in our country. Infant mortality in our country is the reason why I fight so hard to make sure that poor people have a chance, because poverty is deadly. But I also have a profound respect for choice. And in a pluralistic democracy, the question really isn't whether you personally support having an abortion or not, or whether you would have one. The question is, whose decision is it? And I believe that that decision rightly belongs with a woman and with her doctor. And we're seeing in real time the deadly consequences of politics entering the patient's room. Women are literally dying. As politicians focus on this and make it a wedge issue, it's having consequences on the ground as as people in obstetrics and decide that the cost and the risk of practicing is too much. And so there are too many counties in this state where there's no OBGYN. There are women who are having miscarriages, and the doctors are having to make tough decisions about how they handle it, even though it's clear from a medical point of view what they've got to do to save the life of the mother. The doctor's worried about losing her license, maybe even going to prison. That's not the America that I dream of. I trust women. I don't know why the other side does not. One of the reasons I trust women is because I am a pastor. And I mean, where would the church be without the voices of women? And these are very difficult decisions. They're often heart-wrenching. But I think we are witnessing in real time that the medicine and the reality is much more complicated than the politics. And we're seeing what happens when the politics invades the patient's room.
Senator, really quick here. The speech that you gave on Monday, some could consider it a presidential speech. 2028, which, depending on how the election goes this year, potentially 2032. Would you like to be in the Oval Office one day?
I wake up every morning and I can't believe that I get to be the United States Senator from Georgia and Ebenezer's pastor. I'm having the time of my life. The craziness and ugliness of Washington notwithstanding, I'm one of those kids who grew up in public housing, listening to Dr. King's speeches, and all I've ever wanted to do with my life is make a difference in the lives of ordinary people, and I get to do that every single day.
So,
I thought I answered your question. I have 3 jobs. Ebenezer pastor, senator from Georgia. I got I have 2 jobs, 2 big jobs, and 2 small children. I'm not even thinking about another job.
Well, we'll certainly see if that does come. So.
And Kamala Harris must win in 24. I'm very focused on that. She must win.
Senator Warnock, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.